Okay. Steve, you have control? There we are.
Yep.
All right. Guys, welcome. It's good having you guys back. This is our last session of the summer, and we'll get into that as we end today. So I want to welcome not only the goalkeepers, but also we have some goalkeeper coaches I'd like to quickly introduce as well, if I could. Chad, if you could just give me a 10-second introduction, if you don't mind, please.
Yes, my name's Chad Prickett. I coach club for Ohio Premier in Columbus, Ohio, and then I own Columbus Goalkeeper Academy. And then I coach at the Division III level at Ohio Wesleyan on the men and women's side. So all that is goalkeeper training, coaching only. So thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Glad to have you. Good to have you and your goalkeepers here. Chad has had a handful of goalkeepers join us this summer and looking to get Chad and his goalkeepers obviously more involved. Rick Stanton, if you could quickly give an introduction, 10 seconds, if you could, please.
Yeah, how you doing, guys? Rick Stanton. I am the East Region head coach for the 06 age group. I work with the Federation as a scout and also as a coach. I'm the assistant coach at Georgetown University, and I own a training business called Stanton Sports, mostly out of New Jersey.
Nice.
Pleasure.
Well, sir, good to have you again. Rick and I have worked together since last summer, and it's good to have him as part of this. I know he'll be sharing a lot of quality knowledge well beyond my experience levels. I can promise you that. So, Rick, thank you, man. Appreciate having you and Chad with us. Steve Rarick is our presenter today. You all know Steve. He's been here, been with us the past few months, and Steve is the goalkeeper coach at Slippery Rock University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on the men's squad. And Steve has been a GK Icon Pittsburgh coach for a handful of years now, and he's going to be handling our presentation today. I'm just going to get through the introduction and then pass the baton to Steve. But Steve, welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be back.
Absolutely. Good to have you, man, always. All right, Steve, you can go forward with the presentation, please. Yeah, keep going. There we go. All right, guys, this should be nothing new. For those of you that are regulars here, these 5 bullets have been summarizing really what we've been focusing on when dealing with balls delivered from wide areas when you don't have possession. We're going to get into the particulars of this today and look at some pretty good clips and also look at some comparison clips with similar services, but with 2 different goalkeepers. And we're going to talk about the 5 elements of development and how the differences in those elements of development are different for each goalie, but also how they're very similar. So we're going to break those down as well. Steve, you can go to the next slide, please. And here are our 5 elements of development. Think of it this way: 2 T's, tactical and technical, 2 P's, psychological as well as physical, and then the last one, social. We're going to really hit on the social element today. We're going to start with that one in a moment with some interesting clips from a recent Chelsea-Liverpool match. But with these 5, you guys know how we are really focusing on these, and this is going to help you understand that there's not just one level of development or one element of development, A lot of us focus on just, say, the tactical piece or just the technical piece when dealing with a trainer. We're going to be dealing from a goalkeeper coach's perspectives, and the higher levels you get to, the more you're going to have training around these 5 or education around all 5 of these elements of development. So we will, again, hit on these again today. Yep, Steve, if you can go forward one for me, please. We've spoken to this before when dealing with distribution. We also have been looking at this when dealing with service from wide areas. And you'll see the 3 elements or the 4 pieces in particular: defending the goal, defending the area, and defending the space. And this should be all repeat information for you guys, but you will hear us speak to where our positioning is and where our starting points are based on this slide. So these are some lingo and some vocabulary that we want you to not only understand, but start to use and use when speaking to your goalkeeper coaches and your head coaches, as well as your players and your teammates. Yep, Steve, you can go forward on this one. All right, so what's in it for this week? Here's the basic stuff that we're going to be really focusing on here. The communication piece is going to be a key piece to this one today. We're going to speak to that Chelsea-Liverpool match in Kepa and what the back line, kind of what they did with him in a late service in the match. And we'll also speak to not only his response, but the head coach, Frank Lampard's response to it as well. We'll speak to the instruction and how to communicate, as well as the vocabulary. And one thing I'm going to speak to is, does your club provide a vocabulary list, not only for the goalkeepers to utilize, but for the players and the coaches to utilize, so they understand exactly what it is we're going to be saying regularly. And that's anything from keeper to away to right shoulder, left shoulder, and the list is long. And again, we'll touch upon that when we get there. And then we're going to specifically focus on the narrow zone, or zone 5, which is right outside of the 18, but not all the way out to the end line or the touch line. So what we're going to do is focus on that quick serve, probably the corner of the box. I know those of you that have been training with me the last week or two, we've been focusing on this exact serve. So we will see some familiar services into the box through video. And then lastly, we're going to end with, real quickly, go back if you don't mind. Yep, dealing with the decision to punch or catch. We're going to end with that basic stuff that we have spoken to in the past, but again, we will speak to what those decision-making points are. Thank you, Steve. All right, guys, here are the first 5. So now, everyone except for Chad and Rick, if you guys could take your phones off of mute, please. Real quick little conversation. 1 through 6, I want you guys to give me the names for the zones that we have dictated here. You can list one of them. Come on, give me one.
6 is the byline.
Atta girl, Rowan. I knew you would. There you go. Keep going. Give me another one.
Isn't
Zone 5.
We just talked about 5. What was the name? What was the word we used? I love it. Come on.
wait, isn't 4 narrow?
Keep not narrow. 5 was narrow, right? That's one we just talked about. That's okay.
Okay.
What about 1? Go to the next slide, Steve. There they are. That's all right. So, guys, these are the basic phrases that we utilize that we've defined in these zones here. So, service from 1, that's a deep service. 2, you're looking at an angle a little outside the box. 3 is extremely central. That's as central as it gets. 4 is wide. 5, narrow. And 6 is the byline. Get used to those. Again, there's a lot of vocabulary that we're going to introduce you guys to. So don't be afraid to get an understanding with those and use them. Use them in your training sessions when talking to your coaches. Again, I know with Rowan and with some of the girls that I've been working with, we've been working on services from the, let me think here, from the angle, from the 5, from narrow, and we've been doing the byline cutbacks and service levels over the last 3 weeks. So, Rowan, I appreciate you stepping in there and throwing out some of those answers that we've been focusing on recently. Thank you. All right, Steve, you can go to the next one. Yeah, that's what we're going to focus on right there. Is the 5 is the narrow angle. And here you're going to see, I'm going to turn this over to Steve, but here is a clip from Liverpool-Chelsea from a few weeks back. Steve, I'll let you introduce it and get into the details with it.
Yeah, so anyone that's been kind of following Chelsea over the past year to 2 years, I'm sure that you guys are kind of used to hearing the news about Kepa, where last year he was refusing to get subbed off in a cup final. The coach tried to sign him or sub him off and refused to come off. Now this year he's been under a lot of scrutiny, where he has one of the lowest save percentages in the Premier League of all time that have been, I think, keepers that have played 10 matches or more. I think his save percentage has actually dropped down to around 52 or 53%, right around that area. So essentially 1 out of every 2 shots has a pretty high likelihood of finding the back of the net on him. This is later in the game. Obviously, he's already conceded 5 goals right towards the end. So you kind of start to see a little bit more of the player's true colors showing with the level of frustration. The game's kind of, on its back foot, right about to finish up. But I'm going to play this clip through. Make sure you guys pay attention to the audio. Try and pay attention to the audio clip here and see what you guys can kind of pick up off of this clip.
Keep in mind the goalkeeper's name is called Kepa. Keep that in mind. Not keeper, Kepa.
Atenção ao livre, Milner. É um jogador que se enquadra para cruzamento. Passa ao lado da bola. E o remate de Van Dijk. Parece que cá está Milner. Passa ao lado da bola. O cruzamento é de Rob.
Okay, so kind of going back onto that clip, did anyone hear right as that service was coming in? Did you guys pick up on what all of the defenders were yelling? Let's speak up. Someone unmute yourself. I want to hear what were the defenders saying?
They were saying Kepa's name to do something, like, because he was just kind of just standing there. Like, they wanted him to either come out or at least say away or keeper so that they knew what to do.
Exactly. So did anyone hear Kepa say anything, or was it just the defenders?
From what I heard, it almost seemed like it was just the defenders. Kepa just kind of watched everything go on and didn't really react at all.
Exactly. So it's never a good thing when your keeper is quiet. That's one of the big vocal points that we're really going to hit on today, is especially a part of that social aspect, is you have to be that leader at the back. You have to start commanding that back line. And when your defenders don't really hear that vocal presence, a lot of times they'll go and try to make that decision for you. And what that does is that's going to create a lot of confusion in the box, because if I'm the goalie and I'm making the decision where I'm not going to come out, I need to vocalize that so that way my defenders know I'm staying home. It's your job to get the ball out and prepare for the save, essentially. Where if they're yelling keeper and I'm yelling away, that's going to create that big void, almost where you see Virgil van Dijk on the back post kind of sneak into a free area because no one really expected the ball to get that far. So that little bit of confusion with the communication of keeper versus away and who's saying what and doing what, that's going to cause a lot of problems. All right. So touching on that point, who should be the only person dictating keeper away? Is it your coach? Is it your defenders? Is it the goalie? Who do you guys think should be making that decision?
Oh, the goalie 100%.
Exactly. So even if your coach is on the sideline yelling keeper for every ball that's coming in, all right, that could be a point of conversation where you're going to want to go over and kind of have a word with him or a word with her and really make sure that your voice is the only one making that decision. Because again, even if it is coming from your coach, odds are your center backs are going to listen to the person making that decision, but it can cause that half second of hesitation where if there's a ball coming over the back line, you're yelling away and you're staying on your line and your coach is yelling keeper and yelling for you to come out. Your defenders can slow down that half second to where that ball is going to really get over the top, allow the attacker to get onto the end of it, and that's where you can really get punished with it. But another point on here is watch as this ball is coming through. You have Chelsea's main center back, Kurt Zouma, and their striker, Tammy Abraham, two fairly good winners of the ball in the air. All right, watch what they do as this ball is coming in, because this is a nightmare ball to come and deal with because of the amount of bodies in front and the likelihood of contact, right? So as this ball is getting served in, you see Tammy duck, and then Kurt Zouma is hunched over, kind of hiding because he's expecting contact from his goalie to come out and get on the end of it. Now you also see Chelsea's other center back, Rudiger, who is marking one of the best center backs in the world right now. And that ball gets completely through the back because he's not even expecting to get the ball. So then Van Dijk, if he's a little bit more aware, Kepa is still rooted to the spot, facing forward, hasn't adjusted his hips, hasn't adjusted his feet, and he has a lot of ground to make up if that ball gets put on frame. So as that ball is coming through, that's the sort of confusion where you have Abraham and Zouma that are literally ducking to get out of the way because they hear Kepa's name being called. So now they're not going for it, which is going to create that lapse of communication. Now, after this ball goes out, you already start to see it right here with 3 Chelsea players with their hands up in the air. But once this ball is out, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Chelsea players all turned around looking at the goalie like, what are you doing? Why are you not coming out for that? Why are we not hearing you? So that's the social part where, as a goalie, working with your back line, similar to that Ederson clip that we watched a couple weeks back where he came out and absolutely clattered his center back, Eric Garcia, who was kind of a fill-in. They didn't have that relationship of where Garcia is really used to working with Ederson, so that causes that hit. Now you see the relationship of goalies and center backs who have been working together, who are very frustrated with one another and are not getting that communication and that leadership coming out of the back. So this game happened, I believe, three weeks ago now. Kepa has been dropped from Frank Lampard. He has not played in another match. There is a must-win game at the end of the season for them to clinch top 4 in the Champions League, which is, I think, right around a $50 million decision. And Frank Lampard dropped his number 1 goalie for his backup, Willy Caballero. There was then an FA Cup final that Willy Caballero played in, and Chelsea are playing again tomorrow in the Champions League, where they're already down 3-0 on aggregate, so they have to put in a good performance and they have to win. And Lampard has already said, that's it. I've had enough. I don't trust him anymore. Willy Caballero is going to be starting. They're now in the market looking – they're linked with probably half of the goalies in the world right now, but really focusing on people that can have that good shot-stopping percentage that, unfortunately, Kepa really hasn't had so far this year. So focusing on that social aspect, we're going to go through a couple of these here. Which one of these bubbles do you guys think that Kepa did well and demonstrated in that last clip? Which one do you think he kind of needs to work on? What are your thoughts in terms of this social connection between Chelsea's goalie and their back line right now?
What's the obvious one he didn't do?
Communicate.
No doubt.
Exactly. Right now, that's kind of the big glaring one. All right. Coachable is going to be one that I'm going to throw out because of my knowledge of the club from the previous season, when the coach is trying to sub him off and he's saying, no, I'm staying. I'm not coming off the field. That doesn't look good for the coach. It doesn't look good for the player. So that could be another one where that social connection between even him and his own manager from last year isn't necessarily there. So what are 1 or 2 more that we noticed from that last clip?
He doesn't seem like go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying he wasn't a leader. Like, he wasn't vocal. He wasn't telling, like, his defense what he was doing. Like, he wasn't leading his team. And with the score and how he let in 5 goals before, he wasn't being such a great leader with his team.
He kind of almost like turtle shelled went into his foxhole, where he's just kind of waiting for that game to end at that point. He's already given up 5. He's getting yelled at from his teammates. So that's always kind of the one point with goalies is everyone else on the field can kind of give up at some point, and it doesn't necessarily get highlighted. But the second a goalie stops trying, or the second you lose that leader at the back, you really start to notice it, and it's that kind of key point that people kind of remember throughout the rest of the game. So, Drew, what were you going to say?
I was going to focus on the managing mistakes part, because he, like you said, he was getting frustrated, ready to give up, but yet he continued to make mistakes. And one of the things I've always been taught is that you're going to make mistakes, and that's inevitable, but it's focusing on limiting them and making sure they don't happen multiple times throughout the same game. And I remember watching that game clearly, and he made multiple mistakes throughout that same game.
Yep, love it. So you watched that game, right?
Yeah.
So how many times was that ball served in to where you think that he may not have had a keeper call, or there was one that he could have possibly dealt with that he didn't? Or what are your thoughts on how he was dealing with balls served in from the wide area?
I mean, I'm trying to remember most of them now, but I vaguely remember there were some where he did do a good job of making it known that he wanted to that he wanted his center backs to deal with it, or he did claim it himself. But those ones were very obvious of, okay, it's in the position where I shouldn't be going for it, or it's one where I need to be going for it. And the ones that were in the middle, like that one that you played for us, those were the ones that he was hesitant with and not very vocal and clear with what his intentions were.
Right. So that's going to highlight kind of the psychological point and the goalie's confidence within themselves. So anytime that there was that decision that had to be made of, do I go for it? Do I stay home? That's where he really struggled throughout that game. I remember a couple where he did okay. And there were a couple where I remember they were served in, and it was the same kind of response from his center backs, where they started to turn around before it got to 5-0, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, are you coming? Are you staying? And that's where that breeding ground of frustration and distrust is going to start to build between a back line and a goalies if they don't know what you're doing, or you're not on the same page, and then you're kind of making mistake after mistake and not trusting your own ability. So one of the other ones that I'm going to talk about is the accountability one. So as you see the 7 to 8 Chelsea players turning around, looking at him like, dude, did you see any sort of kind of like snap back, or was there, hey, 2 of you guys ducked out of the way of it? I didn't call keeper. Why are you guys saying keeper for me? Did you see any kind of fight, or did he kind of just lay down and was like, okay, and just kind of accepted it? There's a lot of anger coming towards him, but I didn't really see any fight back from him. I didn't see him trying to really demand and lead out of the back and say, I'm the only one that should be yelling keeper. You guys shouldn't be yelling my name. If I'm coming forward, I'm going to claim it. There wasn't really any managing his mistakes. There wasn't any accountability of, you're right, I should have came out and got that. That's my fault. Usually that's kind of the big sign, is the keeper will hold his hand up and be like, you're right, that's my fault. I should have come out and claimed that. But there wasn't. It was kind of very just, okay, can we get out of here yet? We're already down 5-0. And it was really kind of laid back. So that's, for me as a Chelsea fan, very disappointing to see. But, hopefully they come back with a nice bid for another keeper, hopefully one that we're going to look at later on in the clips, and hopefully get that goalie position sorted out.
Steve, can I jump in there real quick? Am I going back for a second?
Absolutely.
One thing I want to add, how many have seen a situation that we just showed on that video clip where, whether it was you or another goalkeeper, that miscommunication or that lack of communication led to a frustrating conversation between the back line and a goalkeeper? Just show of hands. How many of you guys have seen or experienced something like that? It happens all the time. I hate to say that, but it does. As a goalkeeper, if you said something and they're not following with it, you're in the right. If you're a goalkeeper and you're not saying something, you're not in the right. Your one decision you have is you can't be silent. That's just a non-negotiable when it comes to this situation. Please understand that it's got to be a keeper or away. And you're going to see possibly some people on your team looking at you a little differently if that doesn't happen. Let me add just real quickly, if I could just ask, Chad or Rick, what, as a coach, what do you see if you see that situation occur? What do you do with the goalkeeper in the back line to kind of reconnect from a social connection standpoint?
I mean, the one thing that I always stress upon, not only just the goalkeeper and the field players, is it's a game of mistakes. We're going to have to try to minimize them and then recover from them if we do make them. So the one thing is trying to recollect yourself. All right. The moment is over. The mistake was had. It's about trying to get yourself grounded again. And if that means, someone barks at someone, sometimes you have to accept that and say, all right, we move on. We're in it for the same fight. So to me, communication is key for all success. And when you're talking about the goalkeeper position, obviously with Kepa there, that was a ball that his entire team thought he should have come out for, and he just hesitated. So now he has to communicate to try to help him and his team recover, and he should have been maybe making an away call or something so everyone else wouldn't have been hesitant or still on the play. So once the mistake happens, I think it's all about the response. You can't bury yourself. You have to be able to pick your head up, take whatever ramifications came from it. If you conceded, well, now it's your mission not to concede again and do everything in support to try to, get it back or get the lead again, so forth and so on. So it's the mental aspect, I think, more than it would be any of the physical. If you don't have the mental will or the strength to be able to recover, then it's going to be a long process for you, especially developing as a goalkeeper.
Chad, what do you say to your back line and your goalkeeper in that situation where the back line's calling for the keeper to come out and the goalkeeper's not?
So I'd say there was a lot of bad stuff in that clip. There was a lot of, and socially, I think the most important thing is he didn't call for the ball, which he should have said something, but somebody else called Kepa there, right? For me, that's not okay. If I'm in the goal, that's and that should be a simple conversation. Hey, you don't call keeper, you don't call any of that stuff, I'll do that. Now, where he messed up, he's got a huge lack of presence. You can tell confidence, he's shot. I mean, he is so shot. He thought he was coming for that ball, and you can tell by the way his movement and how slow he was getting back to the back post. But socially, for me, the conversation needs to be like, hey, I need you guys to help me a little bit. Even be a little open and say, hey, I'm not on my game right now. Do me a favor, leave the keeper away calls up to me. And can you do it in a nice way? Where for me, I probably would have been pretty pissed at someone calling my name to come get that ball there.
I agree with that last part. And it's okay to show your frustration. And Coach and Rick made a comment about it too. It's okay to bark, especially when someone's doing your job for you. Now, you didn't do your job first and foremost, so you're going to get barked at too. Keep that in mind. But ultimately, when they're calling keeper and you're not doing that, or you're not on the same page, you have to bark at them. And so it's okay to have those conversations, but it needs to be smoothed out going into the next training session, next game. But I agree with both what Chad and Coach Rick had to say.
Can I add on to Chad's point real quick?
Absolutely, Drew. Go right ahead, man.
So I was thinking the same thing that he was, where it can't come from the center backs, whether it's Zuma, Rudiger. They can't be the ones telling Kepa whether to come out or not. And at that level, that's the highest level in the world. Those center backs, they should be experienced enough to know that it's not their decision to make that call for the keeper, whether he wants to come out or not. And Lampard should also understand that at the same time. And while Kepa needs to say something to those center backs about leaving that decision up to him, I feel like that also has to come from Lampard as well to further prove that point. But while that was going on, Lampard was focusing on dropping an F-bomb on Jurgen Klopp too. So, I mean.
Hey, Drew, why do you think those defenders felt they could call his name like that?
I'm honestly not really sure. I know that from my playing experience that has happened a lot. I think my gut reaction is that it seems like the defenders see a ball coming in and they pick up on the flight of it and they think that it should be the goalkeeper's ball, when in reality that's not always the case. And so I think it's more so of a defender not knowing the goalkeeper position enough to understand that there are certain balls that a goalkeeper can't get to or shouldn't go for.
I'll play devil's advocate. Very well spoken, Drew, and very, very, very valid points from everyone. So this is what I am intrigued with the dialogue. However, we've worked very hard at trying to integrate the goalkeepers with the field players to work, as a unified unit. And, field players are always directing each other, telling others where to go, and, try to direct them with some of their actions and things. And when you look at that ball was coming across inside the 6. So what my defenders are now telling me there are they expect me as a goalkeeper to get that ball. Now, where, again, Kepa, I think, goes wrong is even if they're saying Kepa, because there's all communication going on there, and Kepa can't get to it, he should be yelling away, away, away. And then that would tell me as a defender, he's not coming, right? So then I have to do something maybe a little bit different in my reaction or my action. So just playing a little devil's advocate, just thinking from a field player's perspective too, their expectation of that ball coming in on the 6 or inside the 6, they're expecting him to come get it. He has to do a little bit better in telling them, I'm not coming. So –
because he wasn't coming too, to Rick's point. And if you look at even the ball when it goes, almost like he expected the defenders to head it away. Because when that ball snuck through to the back post, he wasn't even turned ready for the shot either. He was literally expecting that ball to be cleared out. So when that ball escaped not only him but the defenders, he was late to turning to even try to get himself in a shot stopping position too. Yeah, just play that one more. See where he is now. Like he's not even close. His eyes are there. But look where his body's facing. The ball right now is pretty much on the foot of the back man, the man in the back post. He's not even there. It's almost like everything went wrong. It's like just a comedy of errors here. He's lucky that didn't go in. Stevie, all you, sir. Thank you.
Yep. So last point on that is, there was a lot of talk about, even after the game going and trying to smooth things out with his defenders. One of the clips that was released from their next training session is you have Ross Barkley who goes and scores a goal, and you still see 3 Chelsea players, throw their hands up in the air, and you see Ross Barkley, who scored, doesn't even celebrate and just turns around shaking his head like, how does that go in? So that really highlights, is there that communication between, Kepa and his defenders, or is Lampard actually backing Kepa at all? It asks a lot of questions as to the social connection between the Chelsea team right now. Mm-hmm. But moving on into, the communication aspect. Communication for us as goalies is really just an umbrella term, in my opinion, where, we need to break it down into three separate roles, which we have here. So when we're talking about communication, what are some key words, phrases that you guys use, every day when you're out playing?
Rowan, give me one.
Keeper in a way is pretty basic, but you also use like push up and left or right depending on what the situation is. Like if your defender is never mind. Scratch that.
You were going fine too, don't worry.
Yeah, you're doing well.
I'm going to keep going to some. I'm going to start hand picking if that's all right. Macy, can you give me a couple of calls that you would utilize in a game?
I use like step up or pressure the ball.
Cool. Drew?
Especially with set pieces, with organizing the wall, letting them know move left, move right, and then marking as well. Specifically assigning players to a man, not just yelling mark up, saying to one of your center backs, mark number 12, to your other center back, mark 17 kind of thing.
Drew, what's the most important part of that communication when communicating that information to your team? What's the
Short and sharp.
What's the first thing you say? I'm putting you on the spot. If you're talking to someone,
which situation?
If I'm talking to you in particular, I'm giving you an instruction, What's the first thing I say that you understand I'm talking to you over everyone else?
You have to say their name.
Bingo. 100%. 100%. First name, action, result. Drew, backdoor, goal side. Something as simple as that. Well said. Mark, how about yourself, sir?
Yeah. Normally I'll do what Drew said, as telling the person, hey, Mark 17, Mark 21, something like that, so they know. So what happened in that wouldn't happen.
Nice. And Alexia, how about yourself?
On my team, they know if I say their name and I say left shoulder or like right shoulder or something, and I call the people that they need to mark their number, I think they know that they need to mark them. So that's what I would say, or I would say drop or push up.
Good. Perfect. Let's look at
So with all of those, they're going to fall under these three kind of different categories. You know, communicator being one, where you're delivering that message. Two, being the informer, where you're sharing detail. And then the last one being the instructor, where you're kind of that orchestrator at the back, kind of organizing your back line. So in the communication aspect, you know, very well said previously, but you want that early, clear, concise, consistent, and authoritative instruction, where you don't want to be saying it too late to where they don't even have time to react. And one of the big ones on here is that consistent message. You want to be using the same language for every situation that is the same. I don't want to be changing. If I'm trying to tell them man on left shoulder, all right, I don't want to try and switch that lingo. Or if I'm trying to get them to press, I don't want to switch it to squeeze. You know, something as similar as that, it can just create that half second of hesitation. Drew already got to one of my main points on here, is when you are giving this communication, you want to put a name on it. You know, there are a lot of times where I hear goalies just very generically say, Mark 17. And all the players look around and they go, oh, well, someone else will have it. And then ball gets served in, 17 has a bullet header into the top corner, and then everyone's stood there looking around, oh, who had him? So really, really want to put a name on it, make sure that someone can be held, just like with that social aspect before with Kepa. You want to be accountable for, you know, marking that person, making sure that they're marked. Another point on here is using your tone of voice. So really highlighting danger areas and make sure your tone of voice reflects that. If someone's about to get a through ball on a run coming in, I don't want to just sit there and be like, hey, left shoulder, he's going to run right by you. And just sit there and wait for the outcome, right? Because then it's one-on-one, and I want to be there, and I want to be like, hey, left shoulder. You know, be loud, be assertive, put a name on it. If Eric's my center back, I want to make sure that he hears me. He knows that my tone of voice is reflective of the danger that's coming in. If I go, Eric, man, left or right, odds are he's going to take a quick glance, all right? Maybe it takes him a second to take a quick glance, to take his eye off the ball. But if I yell, Eric, right shoulder, and I really get loud with it, he's going to notice, okay, there's that immediate threat coming. I need to take that into account, and I need to adjust my position. So, Eric, I know you had a couple good points.
Yeah, the only ones I would want to emphasize, to me, is real important, is your tone. And not turning into – and I'm dating myself with this cartoon reference. I hopefully Rick and Chad can understand it, or if I'm way beyond their years too. But with Charlie Brown, and when he's in the classroom with his buddies, Charlie Brown's teacher, if you ever watch one of those clips, Charlie Brown's teacher literally sounds like this constantly. And no one has a clue what the heck she's saying. But that can turn into a goalkeeper too. If you're doing this quote unquote running commentary, that's not communicating. So just because you're talking frequently doesn't mean you're doing the right thing to your teammates. What you're trying to do is basically give them the answers to the test, because you can see everything out there. So if they're stuck ball watching, or if they're just kind of getting up and recovering in a recovery run, you can help them and guide them to what they should be doing with what you see on the screen. Early, clear, concise information. Drew said it perfectly earlier. Drew, you should be teaching this, first of all. Second of all, you literally stole all the information off the slide. So great job with that. The other is the tone. And what I mean by that is I jokingly say this to the kids I work with, but does the tone match the message? Ball's bouncing around inside your 6 and you're on your line and it's a 5th. Everyone's just fighting for it. Away. Like, does that tone reference to the severity of what you're going through? Or is it away and you're screaming at them? Like, that's a huge difference. You know, it's like, hey, so can you always say it in the manner it's meant to be based on the urgency needed in that situation? Chad, Rick, anything you two would want to add based on what we're speaking to?
Yeah, just made mention to the reference of Charlie Brown. Yes, I'm your age, if not older, so I'm sure I knew exactly what you're saying. But ironically, with the team training yesterday, I had this conversation with an outside back where I had to stop the team, and now this is an older group, and they still don't understand the communication aspect of it. Like you said, the chitty chatter, they think, or the cheerleading even, they think is effective communication. Really what it becomes, and I use the phrase white noise. And, I asked them what white noise was, and someone said it's like the sound of a fan. Another one said, oh, when the TV has the static. And that's what white noise is. It's just that consistent buzz that you wind up either ignoring or not listening to. And that's because it's all rambling, and you want to literally hit each one of these topics that you present here. Do it as early as possible. And I always try to say it's like 1-syllable words like slide left, push up, things like that could be very, very concise. And, some people miss this bullet point, which I love that you guys put on it, is be consistent with the words that you use as well. Because some goalkeepers might say step, step, step. Well, step means to step and move forward, where you might be trying to explain tackle. So that's a world of difference that I think sometimes people have to get on that same page as to what the meaning of your verbiage is. So that's all I would contribute to that is, get rid of the white noise and make sure it's defined.
Love it. And actually, Rick, I use the phrase caveman talk. Talk like you're a caveman. Away, mark. Like it just one word syllables to your point there. I love that. Chad, anything you'd want to add, sir?
I think you guys nailed it. And communication to me is like, it's huge. I think it's undercoached. I think kids are too afraid at the young ages to really try to communicate. So the one thing I'll hit on is how important it is. Like little analogy that we'll use, like I look at the goalkeeper, you're the top, you're the owner, you're the boss, your 4 defenders in front or below you. That's who you talk to the most. And then the midfielders are below them. You talk to them, maybe not quite as much as the defenders. Now, the importance of being a good communicator then more or less prevents goal scoring opportunities, goals being scored on. And if you think of it that way, can I be really good at communicating so they don't even have a chance to shoot, or so they're not having scoring opportunities? I think that's the mindset you kind of have to have with your communication, especially the younger ages.
Absolutely.
Interesting, Chad. To that point, I've actually heard a real good line the other day, and it was good goalkeepers make 10 saves a game. Great goalkeepers make 3 to 4 saves a game. The best goalkeepers make 0 saves a game. And that's based on everything Chad just said, your communication and minimizing and limiting the opportunities through communication with your teammates. And I think that's just so accurate. It's interesting that well said. Well said.
Eric, that's exactly what I was going to say. The phrase that I always use is a goalkeeper's best game is where they don't have to touch the ball, because that means they're taking care of everything that's in front of them. So extremely, extremely well said. One last point that I'm going to make on this communication point is, especially with younger goalies, to try and cut out the hey, yeah, and then the message. Try and cut out those short little introduction clips of where you're trying to think of what to say exactly. It's just like saying when you're giving a presentation, where you want to think of what to say. Have that message already in your head, analyze the situation, and just go right with that message. Try not to get the, hey, step left, or Chad, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you nailed it too, and especially the younger kids. Yeah, you know, the important thing, the mindset with communication, you have to practice it just like everything else. So I think Drew was talking about mistakes, right? If we're not making mistakes, we're not going to get better. So be okay and expect to make mistakes in practice, games, or whatever with communication. That's fine, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. If you could build a basic vocabulary, I think you'll be more efficient getting there, though. Sorry.
Yep. No, brilliant. Thank you. So moving on from the communication and being the role of the communicators, now is where you're giving the information. So this is where you're going to see, you know, the keepers, if you're coming to claim the ball, once you distribute and you're trying to give that information to your center back, to your outside back, letting them know, hey, you have time. So they have an understanding of what's behind them if they haven't checked their shoulder. And then once you're organizing that back line, telling them where the runs are coming in, so left shoulder, right shoulder, all of this still applies to our previous slide of keeping all of that same exact rules, where you want it short, concise, early, all of that. So lastly is the instruction aspect of it. This is where you're kind of organizing that back line. It's where you're the guy leading the symphony, where you're telling your team to push up, you're telling them to drop, you're telling them to slide left, slide right. You know, the words on here, away. So that means you're not coming for the ball. Your team now has to be, that's the instruction for your team to get the ball out, as opposed to you coming and giving information that you're going to get the ball. That's kind of the brief distinction between the two of those. But again, you know, all of these words, we'll move on to kind of a little list right here that you guys can quickly take a look over and read. But trying to think as you're looking through all these, you know, which one of these words or phrases, what category they're going to fall under.
And while you're looking at this, guys, one thing that I am really, I stress this a lot with the clubs and that I utilize and that I try to train with, is how many of you guys actually have a sheet that you can hand out within your team, within your club, that talks to the goalkeeper's vocabulary. Because in most scenarios, the vocabulary differs by coach and the vocabulary differs by team. But if you're in the same club, everyone needs to know what you're saying and how you're saying it, despite whatever team you're playing for, whatever coach you have. And I strongly believe that having just a two-sided front and back with basic instructions handed out to the team so the goalkeepers can practice it, the goalkeeper coaches can utilize it, as well as the coaches, everyone's on the same page, and there's never going to be a miscommunication if they all stay on the same path with the vocabulary list that they're given. And it's nothing out of the ordinary. Away, ball side, contain, drop, goal side, keeper. You know, it's all stuff that you all utilize, but in different, and you'll see some phrases on here that you might not see or utilize regular here in the United States, because this list in red on the screen, this was built by some of the guys over in the UK. So how they say things might be a little bit different than how we say things. But having in your club that organized communication method, I feel is gold. And I don't know if people utilize that, if they have it, not looking for answers. But if you don't, I believe that's one way the club can go in the right direction with goalkeepers, is just to get on the same page from a communication standpoint. That's how strongly I feel about communication with a goalkeeper.
Yeah, and Sam Heffield, one of the coaches that's been on the calls with us extremely frequently, when him and I were discussing this, he was like, I played in a 20-minute pickup game the other night, and played in a pickup game, and within 20 minutes, he said, I think all but 2 phrases on this list. So that just shows within 20 minutes the type of information that you can give to your team if you're vocal without becoming that white noise where you're commentating every single play, every single touch of the ball.
Nice.
So we can move on to the main meat of our session, where balls are being delivered from the narrow zone, so zone 5. Again, a quick, reminder, really focusing on zone 5 here. Okay, so right outside of the 18, just before we get to the byline.
And Steve, let's run through all the video, and then we'll analyze on the still shots after this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so while you guys are going through, just a couple quick things that I want you to look at while these clips are being played is, one, look at the number of players in the box, differentiate between the attackers and the defenders. One, where the ball is coming from. All right, so is it super close to the 18? Is it higher up? Are they within shooting range, essentially? Another one is, where is the goalie set position? And the last point is, where is the main point of attack? Where is the most dangerous area that this ball can get served into? All right.
І віддає на Вокера сюди в зону. Кайл прострілює. М'яч забирає Райан. Зінченко, прострільна передача. Голкіпер вибиває. Арон Мой. Оксли Чемберлен на лівому фланзі. Прострільна передача. Забирає м'яч Мет Райан. Вот такие запоздалые португальские танцы. И Доннарума, конечно.
Мхитарян на правом фланге. Мхитарян, прострел!
Okay. So going on to, we now have still shots of where the goalie set position is right before each one of these clips. So what can you guys tell me about this main clip that you pick up just from that first time kind of watching it? Anyone take a look at the goalie set position?
Is he on his ball line?
No.
Is that okay?
From this shot here, you can tell that, I believe that's Kyle Walker getting ready to, you can tell that he's in the process of crossing it. So I would say in this example, it's okay to be off the ball line because you know the direction of where the ball's going.
What about this, Drew? If he shoots it from there, what are the odds that Matt Ryan covers that near post shot?
From that distance, I say it's very easily that Matt Ryan gets over there.
Agreed. 100% agree. 100%.
So right now, taking a look at this clip, the main goal threat is going to be this one lone attacker that they have coming in that's surrounded by two with a third defender coming back post. So take a look at his set position right now. He's not closed off to the ball because where's that main threat going to be going to? Probably right in front of this top of the 6 area, right? So he has to be ready. You can kind of see him with his weight more so on his right foot because he's anticipating this cross coming in so that he can go out and claim, which, as we know in the clip, he does, comes out, gathers really well. Okay, so now moving on to this clip, still keeping the goalie's set position in mind, what's the main difference right now that you see with their set position?
He's a lot closer to his near post than he was in the first one. The first one, he was more towards the center of his own goal.
Yes, and what is he in more of an open stance, more of a closed stance to the ball?
Definitely more of a closed stance.
Exactly. So now that there's a lot more people in the box, there are now 5 Manchester City players. Where's that main threat going to be? Where do you think the most dangerous area that Brighton can serve this ball into? Probably with Raheem Sterling being one of the quicker players in the league and one of the better finishers. If he makes this run right in front of Dunk and gets on the end of it and gets a quick flick, if his body stance is open, because that was my first initial thought when I saw it the first time, is I was like, oh, well, I think he should have been a little bit more open. But if Sterling rounds the defender here and gets a quick flick on it, if he's not closed off, odds are that flick is going to be able to beat him. Okay, and also now he's in that position where he knows where the main threat's going to come from. So he's in a much better position right now to attack the ball and take the service away before it even arrives to Sterling.
So my question with that is, how do you identify which one's the main threat? Because from this clip here, my reaction would be that I think that's Phil Foden. He would be more of the main threat because there's not a Brighton player within 3 yards of him. If that ball gets clipped right to him, he has enough time to settle that ball and take another touch, and he can put it basically anywhere in the net. And so that's why I would think he would want to have more of an open stance.
So I love the thought process. It's a brilliant analysis to look at Phil Foden here, realize he's in space. The one thing that I'm going to play devil's advocate with is, can this Brighton player get that ball up and back down to him without having a Brighton player come over and close him down?
I mean, that does look like Kevin De Bruyne, so I wouldn't be surprised if he could pull that off.
Right?
Drew, I am loving your analysis today. Keep it coming, brother. Fantastic.
So, barring Kevin De Bruyne's ability, undoubted ability, I'm going to say that it's very, very hard to get that ball up over the 4 Brighton players back down to Phil Foden to where he can then take another touch and go. So if that does happen, I think that 15 can just drop his left foot and then he's squared right up to him, and Dunk can also step in and close that space down before he can get a second touch off. So right now I say the space is going to allow that low whipped-in cross with Sterling trying to make that front post run. So also another option may be Mahrez on the back post. But right now, another thing to take a look at is the shooter's cue. All right, so does it look like he's about to loft a ball all the way across the 18, or does it look like he's about to try and smash this low and hard across the ground?
From the still shot, it's hard to tell, but I believe that with the video, it was low and near post smashed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so he tried to really hit that ball right across. Matt Ryan actually ended up punching it back out and split Phil Foden and I believe David Silva on this back post, because he wasn't sure whoever was stepping, whether it was his center back or whether it was Sterling. He played it safe and punched that ball out. So if he does cross that back post, there's enough time to where he can open his stance, shuffle across, and try and get set and give himself a better chance at that ball. All right, so moving on to this one, very similar position. Okay, main goal threat, very similar. All right, here you can really tell based on his body position that he's hitting that ball low and whipped in front, hoping that Firmino can get a touch on it. Again, closed off stance, kind of hugging the near post a little bit, but no one really back post. Salah is up here. I believe that's Naby Keita coming in. So everyone's kind of right in that same area where the Brighton midfielder is going to prevent that low ball back across through that you talked about in the last clip. So main goal threat, again, is going to be right on that front edge of the 6. All right, so now we'll move on to Donnarumma. All right, so in this clip, this is the one clip that I am going to go back to the live game footage of, all right, and point out. So right here, as that ball is coming down into the byline area, he stepped to his near post. He's closed off in a closed off stance, very similar to how Matt Ryan was, okay? Now that this ball is getting played back, all right, notice how he's calling out the danger back here because there are only 2 of the Juventus players in the box. All right, 1 back post, 1 central, both right in between 4 Milan defenders. So also the shooting cue, he is obviously shipping that ball in back post. He's leaned back. He's looking for that service back across. So Donnarumma does a really good job of dropping, opening his position, and now he's in a better position to then go and attack that cross coming out and take it right off the attacker's head. Okay, so that's that still shot. So then here, very, very similar to the last Matt Ryan clip, right? So take a look at how close Matt Ryan is to the post. Okay, he's probably a step, 1 yard maybe off of that post. And now you have Donnarumma, who's 2 to 3 yards off of that post. What do you guys think the biggest difference in thinking about the 5 factors of development? What one do you think is going to play the biggest role in their positioning off of these clips?
Confidence.
So confidence, that'll be one. That'll be the psychological. What's the other P one?
Physical.
Physical. Beautiful. So Donnarumma is a short 6'5" with about a wingspan of like 7 feet. Okay, so he is absolutely massive in net compared to Matt Ryan, who is just, again, a very short 6 foot keeper, right? So that's going to show even that extra 5 inches is going to allow you to take that step off of the post and close down that space. Because in here, if this guy decides to shoot near post, that's a much easier save for Donnarumma coming off of his post because he has a 7 foot wingspan. He can slap the ball down, get a foot to it, and he still has that covered even though it looks like it's a little open. All right, on this clip, the area that he's trying to serve the ball into is going to be this guy back post. Okay, so what Donnarumma does here is he closes himself off so that way the hardest service is for him to get the ball back up or get it up and back down to this guy back post, but without hitting it miles over and trying to chip essentially a 6'5" keeper. That's a really, really difficult ball to get on the end of. All right, so Donnarumma does well, closes the angle down, takes away the shot, and then eventually just sticks his 2 hands up, catches the ball, and now he's looking for an outlet. Okay, so that physical aspect is one that is really important, looking into where you're going to be at in the goal, and also highlighting that your position, Rowan's, is going to be different from mine. All right, Drew's is going to be different from Eric's. Okay, every goalkeeper is going to have their own different set position where they're comfortable at based on their own attributes, not even just height. If Donnarumma isn't as agile and Matt Ryan is a freak athlete that can go and cover the goal, all right, maybe Matt Ryan's that 2 steps off the post and Donnarumma is hugging it a little bit closer. So taking those into account are going to change kind of where your set position is in the goal as well.
Two things that are similar from both of them. One, neither of them go outside that post. Notice their set position is inside the post or from the post and in. No one eclipses that post. And the other is, notice that majority of these, based on the wide service, they have a closed stance towards the person serving the ball. They're not open or quote unquote cheating, as a lot of us like to refer to. Because if they are cheating and they open up to that back a little bit, if that ball's driven low on the ground, that's going to be a very difficult save for them to get down and dive for, because now it's almost like they're going to be diving and landing on their stomach. So just notice the 2 similarities in association with the differences that we saw too.
Yeah, so going off of that, with their stance, we'll take a look at all of these clips. So right now, there's one attacker in the box. He has an open stance. The main goal threat is that cross coming in, okay? Closed stance, main goal threat's coming near post. A lot more bodies in the box. Same exact thing. Now, open stance because that ball is looking for a cross coming back in. Closed stance, this ball ends up being that low-driven one, or it could be that low-driven one where either a center back cleans it up or it's just a simple side dive. He goes out and claims a cross, or it's that big, long switch that he eventually just claims. All right. This last clip, again, open stance, looking for that ball whipped in right in between him and the attacker where he can take that step and go claim it. All right. But going back to this clip as well, this is going to highlight kind of how important it is to have positional awareness within the game, okay? So as this ball is getting served in, we can't see it. However, Donnarumma checks his shoulder as this ball is coming in. So right here, it's a little blurry, but he has his head pointed, checking what options are coming in upfield. Right? So as this ball is getting served in, he now knows that he's going for it. If he gets a firm hand to it and kills that ball right on the edge of the 6, okay, right towards the end of this clip, you can see this guy making that back post run. So if he gets a firm hand to it and pushes it out at an angle, odds are he's going to be able to get on the end of that. This is that little bit of a tactical element where he's going to have to, I call it breaking your wrist, to get that ball where you're not getting a firm hand to it. You're just kind of guiding it right around the post into a non-dangerous area. All right, so we kind of discussed from zone 5, the 5 elements of development. All right, so Drew, you hit 1, which was the psychological point. I hit the physical one, so tactical one as well, with breaking your wrist going around. So those are kind of the elements that we hit. All right, now we're going to go into catch or punch. Okay, give me 1 or 2. All right, real quick on what is going to impact your decision if you're going up to catch or punch. Rowan, give me 1.
How many people are in the box?
Okay, perfect.
Just throw them out, guys. This is literally the last thing we're doing. So a couple minutes and we're through with it. But at the same time, I want you all to participate in this one. Everyone give us 1 to 2. What's the differences between the catch and the punch? What would you think, and why would you do one versus the other?
The weather.
Weather. I love that one. Who was that, Alexia?
Yeah.
Awesome. Tell me about the weather. What specifically would you be referencing?
Maybe sometimes, like it's raining. Maybe you don't trust your gloves that it will like securely like grab the ball, so you might punch it instead of catching it.
What about the sun?
Maybe I'm not sure about that.
Okay. What about the wind? And this isn't just to Alexia, by the way. This is to everybody. What about the sun? What about the wind, the rain? All those are factors, and I call them factors that you can understand before the game. So before the game starts, can you have a discussion with yourself or your goalkeeper coach or a teammate? What are the variables going into the game? Are the variables going to be different depending on what half you're in? Meaning in one half, you might have the wind at your back or the sun at your back, but then in the second half, that wind and that sun might be right in your face. So those differences, based on what Alexia was saying from a weather perspective, is spot on. Well said. Good job, Alexia.
How much time is left?
Keep talking to that.
How much time is left?
Yep. What do you mean by that, though? Expand if you can.
Like, if there's not that much time left, and if you punch it, the other team could still have a chance to, like, win the game or tie it up if it's extra time. Whereas if you catch it and just hold on to it and then, like, punt it really far or something, then you basically win the game.
Perfect. Keep that in mind for when we watch these clips later. All right, take a look at the time of especially one of the Jean Oblak clips. All right, and remember that exact point, guys. All right, because that's going to come into play a little bit later on. All right, one of the last ones that we haven't touched on yet is if you're expecting contact. All right, if you're expecting to go through a bunch of bodies, odds are you're not going to be able to catch it and hold it cleanly. It might be a safer decision to get some height and width on it and try and get it out of the area to eliminate some of the danger. Okay, so now we'll go through, watch these clips, and really pay attention to the audio clips and tell me what you guys can hear on every single one of these Nick Pope clips.
Клопа дуже наполегливо атакують. Я думаю, рано чи пізно вони все ж досягнуть своєї цілі. Ньюкасл добре кутові використовував. Боуен виконує подачу. Поуп вибиває по центру. Форнальс опускає. М'яч перевів на Форнальса. Той навішує. Поуп на виході. Дотягнувся, вибив кулаком. Навішує Боуен. Поуп. Боуен. Подача. Забирає Нік Поуп.
That's a hard handle right there.
Okay, I am going to break these two clips up into two different groups, okay, because Nick Pope has done a brilliant job. Have you guys picked up on the audio clip on that? What did you hear every single time every single one of those balls were clipped in?
You heard the keeper call.
You heard the keeper call, right? So it was loud, it was early, and it was authoritative. He came out, he was that leader from the back, all right, and came out and made contact on every single one of those. Okay, a couple of the elements that we were talking about was the contact, fighting through bodies. So here on this one, he's catching it well above everybody else. Okay, so that's that clip right there. All right, he's well above everybody. It's a nice, easy hold for him.
Can you play that through for 1 second? I just want to show one thing. Look where he's going after the save.
Атакують, я думаю, рано чи пізно вони все ж досягнуть своєї цілі. Ньюкасл добре кутові.
First instinct is to continue forward with distribution. Notice the opposition numbers in the box. Once you're just running to the top of the box, what does that create? Creates urgency to get out. And you're already going to beat with it, either whether it's a roll or a throw, you're going to beat 4 or 5, maybe in this case, maybe 6 players on the opposite team simply by getting the top of the box and having a throw, simply based on their positioning, based on the corner. So can you quickly distribute? Again, based on the time, based on the urgency of the game, but those are the variables you want to consider when quickly distributing off of a catch.
Okay, so moving on to the next one. Here, he's got to fight through a lot of bodies. Antonio is a big brute of a striker, all right? He's going to be able to bump you, and odds are you're not going to be able to catch it cleanly. Makes the keeper call early, goes up. You can see him contesting with Antonio, almost head height with his hand. Does well, punches the ball away, gets it clear out of the area. Again, same thing here. He's going up. Again, the striker is just right in line with him, so he's punching out through there. Getting a hand on it, fighting through bodies. Okay, so everything that he's doing is fairly consistent. Here, he's catching it well above Antonio's head. All right, so that's a nice, simple catch. You can collect, pull it in, and come down with it and hold it. Okay, so everything that we just saw from Nick Pope, all right, is very consistent. There's a reason as to why he's doing each one of these, okay? Now, with that in mind, let's watch these Gianna Oblak clips, all right, and tell me what word comes to mind when you guys are watching this.
Joaquín Canales, es un tuya mía. Ahora Joaquín por el centro.
Empate para el Celta, ya va el servicio hacia el área, los puños de Oblak.
No, claro.
Como último elemento. Ahí está el esloveno, hoy con poco trabajo, despejaba de puño. A lo que es un poco el estatus natural de este equipo, con esto de defenderse cerca del área. Vistas de la última jugada. Vamos a ver el centro de Mitch.
Okay, so coming from you guys now, what's the one word that kind of sticks out watching all those clips?
Understanding they were choppy. What did you see?
I think my biggest thing I saw was some inconsistency. Like there looked like there were multiple balls that were clipped in with there were a lot of defenders around or even attackers. And sometimes Oblak would punch it away and then other times he would catch it. It was just pretty inconsistent with what his decision-making was.
Drew, you are on fire today, my man. All right. So that's the exact wording that we, as the coaches, when we were meeting, looking at these clips, that's exactly what we were thinking. Because with Nick Pope, there's a reason as to why he was punching. There's a reason as to why he's catching. All right, a couple of these clips as we're going in. So right here, he's going up. There's no contact. All right. One guy here surrounded by both guys. He's going up. He can claim it nice and big. Instead, he punches. Okay, now ball falls to the top of the 18, immediately served back in. Okay. Going into the next one, again, he may have to fight through some bodies, okay? But look at who is around him. he's surrounded by his own center backs that are shielding the rest of the attacking players from him, giving him that space to where he can rise up, collect it above everyone, and hold. Okay? Next one, as it's getting served in, maybe it's a catch, maybe it's a decision to punch, but right here, he's already made his decision, so he has done well with that. He is making a decision early where he's going to punch because he's worried that this striker may get a touch on it. All right, but again, he can see that ball is probably 4 or 5 feet above his head. That might be a last second. Instead of punching, just flip his hands, turn it into a basket, and hold it. Next clip. You see the contact is coming from Suarez. All right, he can still go up and claim it. But again, the inconsistent of is if there is the slight hint of contact, it looks like he's been punching. Now that there is going to be contact, now he's holding. Okay, so he goes up, claims big on that one. Similar to here, this is a brilliant catch. Look at how high up above everyone else that he's getting. Great decision. All right, so that moves us to the last clip. So everyone take a quick look at the time. All right, it is 94 minutes and 32 seconds into the game in 5 minutes of stoppage time, leading 1-0. Everyone remember the point that Drew brought up earlier about end of the game, you may want to try and catch, hold, go down, kill the clock, hold on to it for 5-6 seconds until the referee's telling you to get it, and then you just bomb it up the field, kill the game off. Well, Oblak goes for it. All right. The next highest person is at his hip. There is no contact that he is going to be able to get here to where it's going to bump his arms. And unless it's a blatant foul where they undercut him and the play is going to stop anyway, this is worth the risk, in my opinion, to go up, try and catch and hold, because you are half a body length above everybody else. Instead, he elects to punch. Right back out, last 30 seconds of the game, last 20 seconds of the game. Now he has to deal with a service coming right back in. So those are the in-game decisions where you can have a little bit of game management and really choose to kill a game off if you can go up, rise above everybody else. Minimal contact, all right? Come down, catch, and hold. All right? So we'll move on to, we kind of already went through it. All right, but these are just some of the things that can affect the goalie making that process. So we talked about the number of people in the goal mouth, all right, where the ball is dropping at, the weather, if it's affected by the floodlight, and, if you're going up for it, maybe on a couple of those clips, maybe the sun's in Oblak's eyes. I can't see it, but to me, if everything's in a nice, good environment and he can hold, as one of the best goalies in the world, I think that he should be doing a little bit more catching and punching on a more consistent basis and have a little bit more of a reasoning behind it. But again, I'm not there in the game. Maybe it's a different way of coaching as well. Maybe his coach is instructing him to punch out more as opposed to catching because he's more confident with it. Those are some other different kind of points, but you guys really nailed all of these. Again, Drew took one of the big points from us today with the game context, so the score and time and risk versus reward setup. But that is the end here. Is there anything else that you guys saw from those two clips, Eric?
Yeah, I'm honestly just going to, with this piece here, again, I just want to go and ask Chad, Coach Rick, is there anything you guys would want to emphasize or add to this discussion based on the bullet points you see on this slide?
I think you guys really did a very fantastic job. And obviously, again, the dialogue is very intriguing and impressive. So, I think what I would also continue to grow on is the starting position of the goalkeeper. And I know you touched on it, and I know you've gone in depth with maybe some of the other presentations. And something that I always emphasize is, your starting position is important. If it's a closed position, a semi-open position, or even an open position, you know, what's your movement going to be like because of that? What's the timing going to be like because of that? How is your body going to either take a negative step or a forward step because of that? You know, what type of effort will it take to maybe turn your body to face the ball because of your starting position? So just to grow upon that a little bit more from, you know, obviously I know what you guys have done. I'm just saying, as I'm looking at those clips, I'm always looking at their feet and their starting position and, you know, how it initiates their movement.
Nice. Cool. Thank you, sir. Chad?
This all looks real good to me. The only thing that I kind of point out is between both Kepa and these last few clips, which Drew hit on the inconsistency. I think the thing that I'm seeing is maybe a lack of confidence from both those goalkeepers. You know, which, I mean, Crosses does that to us, right? Crosses, I think it's like 98% confidence. And that's kind of what I saw, the consistent like theme between the two goalkeepers that did struggle there.
Then the one thing that I will add, and my goalkeepers hear this quite a bit, but, you know, you're going out for a cross. There are two things that I believe the goalkeeper has a huge advantage of. One, you have in the rule book an advantage with your mouth. You can yell the name of your position as loud as you can and legitimately impact how the opposition will move based on the tone and how loud you yell it. You can yell the word keeper in an aggressive tone and loud tone where forwards could possibly go, and just that little movement throws them off. Keeper! Go out mad, go out crazy, go out and get that ball. And you're going to see some people, just by the volume of your tone, react to it. Second, I say this a lot too, you're going out with hands, fists, and your elbow is in there, and you're protected. You are protected. Here's the forward. And here's the forward. Which side of the coin would you want to be on? And I mean that, not in anything but that you're going up here with fists, hands, and elbows, and you're protecting your face. They're going up with just their face. You have huge advantages when going for that cross. Again, you have to practice it for the consistency, but at the same time, utilize those two advantages. Steve, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Yeah, so overall, guys, that brings us to the end here. Extremely, extremely impressed with the participation and the points that are being made. Every single week we're doing these, you guys are progressing a little bit more each time with how you're breaking down these clips, what you're looking for in your own analysis of them. I know film review is a little bit new for some of you, but overall, I think you guys are progressing extremely, extremely well. I'm thrilled with the level that is continuing to be brought to every single one of these discussions. So hats off to you guys. Very well done.
Yeah. And I'm just going to take the final words just to say, guys, thank you. You know, it's been a very, very productive summer with the educational series. You know, we're looking to put these out there for you to learn and dive deep into in-game moments for goalkeepers. We're going to take a little bit of a break for the next couple of weeks simply because of the chaos that is our current day environment, with people possibly going back to school, people possibly going back to university or club, things getting canceled, schedules we know even from a coaching standpoint are going to be all off, are all over the place. So as such, we're going to put a halt on these till after Labor Day and let people kind of get settled and back into their normal routine with schooling and everything. So look for us to kind of communicate that in the next few weeks. One thing we are looking to add to this is video from our training. So can I record, you're going to love this one, Rowan. Can I record Rowan coming out for crosses, making those saves, taking 10, 15-second clips, and then putting them onto these presentations for us all to analyze? I know Rowan is super excited about that news, but I think that's a challenge that we want to do. We want you guys to understand that video analysis, not only on pros, not only education that you see, but now can we apply it to you? So what we're going to be doing as coaches is you're going to see us hopefully filming in the next month when we're with you guys, and we're going to apply some of these clips to these presentations so we can break them down. All right. Guys, Steve, any last words for you, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. I believe Coach Rick had to take off, but Chad, no, there's Coach Rick. Sorry. Coach Rick, Coach Chad, final words from the two of you, 10, 15 seconds.
I simply want to say thank you. Fantastic job by everyone. And I always love to learn myself. And again, I thought the dialogue was fantastic, especially Drew and Rowan. Good job with a lot of your contributions. Super, super impressive. Continue to expand that mind, and best wishes to everyone.
Nice. Thank you, Rick. Coach Chad?
Yeah, Drew's definitely the man of the match. So congrats to Drew. Hey, good stuff. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think, we hit on a lot of stuff today, communication, presence, just key words. So it's a lot of good stuff. It's going to take me a minute to sit back and take everything I want from it. But really good stuff. And thanks for allowing us to hop on here.
Absolutely. And we're going to be looking to get more and more presentations done by others. So we're going to look for folks to hopefully contribute outside of even our coaching unit. So look for more involvement from others, guys, from not only the goalkeeper's perspective, but also from a goalkeeper coaching perspective. So on behalf of Steve, me, Coach Rick, Coach Chad, everybody, thank you very much. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and have a very happy and safe end of your summer. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.